So to get us started, a big welcome back to everyone, to the familiar faces, to new faces, to our 7th Green Quarantine Learning Session here. We are the Broadway Green Alliance, whose mission is to educate, motivate, and inspire the entire theater community and its patrons to adopt environmentally friendlier practices. And as always, that is exactly what we are all here doing together today. And I am very excited to welcome Jennifer Prescott, who is going to lead us in today's session. And we are so lucky to have her, as Jennifer is a leading sustainability expert and green consultant. Pardon me while I consult my notes to make sure I get this right, because she has been a sustainability leader for environmental education organizations. She co-founded the Upper West Side Compost Pilot, and she spent many years and to date as an actor for Broadway shows and beyond. So it is a real privilege to have you here today, Jennifer. And I'm going to turn the floor to you. For today's session, please feel free to ask questions as we go. A little different from the past two. So you can put your questions in the chat and I will throw them to Jennifer as we go. So
great.
Thank you so much. I'll turn it over to you.
Great. When Molly and I were talking about this particular talk, we were really discussing the theater professional. And she knew that I did my husband's dressing rooms, a few of his dressing rooms. It started with Shrek because my husband is Brian Darcy James. You may know him, the actor. And I was very concerned about his dressing room at that time in particular because he was going to spend so much time in there under a lot of makeup. So he was an hour in makeup before the show, 45 minutes getting out of makeup in an unventilated room, as we all know, or most of us understand. And I needed that room to be clean, clean, clean. So these techniques, these ideas, they apply to any indoor space, because what people don't realize is your indoor space on average is 100% more polluted than outdoor air. And I know that a lot of people that live in urban areas think they have to close their windows and they have to, insulate themselves from this outside that's polluted. It's not true unless you live right on the BQE, right? I mean, it's generally not true. So he had an unventilated room and I needed nothing in that room to be off-gassing and contributing to any poor air quality in there. Where you start in a room, a small room, in an office, in your home, is with your big offenders. And your biggest offenders in your indoor space are carpeting, indoor air fragrances, candles that you may light, some of the, the store bought cleaners, solvents, all that stuff really contributes to a toxic air quality. So what do? In the case of this one dressing room, I made sure they were going to lay a new carpet. And that's not always going to be the case, okay? But in this case, they were. So I made sure it was 100% natural fiber. If you are going to do a wall-to-wall, which I don't recommend, just don't. In small spaces, sometimes like in a dressing room, you don't have any control. It's not a hardwood floor under there. But if you're thinking about transferring your space to make it just healthier, consider investing in, even if it's not hardwood, because you're going to be putting an area rug over it anyway, consider getting a solid surface, because that's cleanable and you can lift that carpet out and clean it. And you just can't do that with even 100% wool natural carpet, wall to wall. Once it gets moisture in it, it's just a breeding ground for bacteria and mildew. It's very difficult to fix once that's happened. So that's my number one advice, is really try to go with a hardwood surface or a hard surface, even, whatever it is. No vinyl. We'll talk about vinyl a lot, but vinyl, no. And that's part of the problem with synthetic carpets not natural carpets, is the backing many times is vinyl. If it looks like it's rubber, it might not be all rubber. So it has a rubber backing, that's great. If it's 100% natural rubber and it hasn't been, galvanized with other, like the polyurethanes or any of that. So that's another thing you need to be sure of. If the back of that carpet just looks like a woven carpet, then you're really in good shape, because you can always put a 100% natural rubber, backing on the floor, right? A pad, right? When you get those though, really look at the materials. Don't just assume that it looks rubbery, that it's all 100% natural rubber. Okay, so you need to buy the ones that 100% natural rubber, okay? Because then they haven't been messed with. Rubber is organic. It's fine. Rubber can go back into the earth. It's not, it's not a toxic anything. So carpets are a big thing. The materials you use for paint, go for a low to no VOC paint. Well, most of us understand that VOC stands for volatile organic compounds. And that basically means it's the off-gassing from that material that escapes from that paint or that cushion or whatever in your space that contaminates your air and isn't good for you. Okay, and it contaminates our air outdoors. So the idea about being really eco-sensitive and health-sensitive indoors, the big bonus is it pays off in our environment as well.
We have some great comments already.
Okay, yeah. Do you want me to stop and have a question?
Sure. I just was adding in that from Chrissy suggests she's adding in that she lives in a relatively small apartment and always opens her kitchen window when using the gas stove to help reduce that indoor air pollution that you were talking about. And Mara says that she loves her hook and loom area rugs that are made of organic wool and cotton and are machine washable. So
yeah, excellent. And I will say to people, you can get all natural fiber rugs at West Elm. They're not hard to get anymore. You can get them in affordable places. A lot of West Elm's rugs, I'm not plugging West Elm, but any of them, Crate and Barrel, most of them will offer a real selection of 100% natural fiber rugs. So they're not impossible to get. If you're looking at the home goods, not so much, okay? Just be aware that if you're looking at rugs at the home goods, most of them are synthetic. So sometimes that's not the worst thing. If it's not, like I said, vinyl on the back, they're going to be a high wear rug. If you're just sort of like, I need something that's going to really take the traffic, that might be a way to go, but just be careful about it, the treatments on those rugs and all that. That's where you get into trouble.
Great.
Do we have another question?
We have a question. Does a high VOC paint continue to, quote, off gas after it's cured? Cass asks, I figured it was only volatile while it's in its liquid form.
No, that's not true. It does off gas. It continues to off gas. It's sort of like a cushion that is made with like the polyurethane treated foams. Once those become a foam, you'd say, okay, well, that's a foam now. So it's inert. It's not. It will continue in the life of that cushion every time it's sat on and used to off gas. It's similar to a mattress. It's the same idea. So there are such good low VOC paints on the markets now. I almost everything I talk about today, I have a post in my blog about. Some of them go back a few years, but the information really hasn't changed that much. So if you wanted to look at jennygreenjeans.com, put in the search bar, low VOC paints, I'll have a whole list of the ones I recommend. There's one that's on there that's a vegan paint that probably know, Faro and Ball. It's very high in paint. It's not on my list. And the only reason it's not is because it's so astronomically expensive. I figure that most of my readers are going to go, okay, I can't do that. But, if you can do that, that's an excellent paint. It's excellent saturation. It's got amazing color. It's 100% vegan. No chemical paint. It's been around for a long time. It comes out of England, but there's a lot of really good ones on the market. Yeah.
That's great. We'll include the link, Chrissy put the link in the chat for anyone who wants to take a look at the blog now, and we'll also include that in our follow-up email to everyone. And Mara's included another great resource, a website used to vet safe, least toxic paint products that will, like before, include these resources for everyone to have.
Great.
And a lovely shout out from Christina Grant, who is the makeup artist from Shrek and appreciated also having a safe space to work in. So a nice thought that when you create a space, it's not even just for yourself, especially in the workplace, it also affects those around you, because we work in these collaborative spaces in the theater. It's never
exactly. I mean, it's an OSHA, category in a way. Everybody in that space is affected by it. So yeah, good point.
Great.
So, okay, so I'm just going to get into fragrances a little bit. A lot of people in small spaces like to light a candle, to make a nice scent, make a nice ambiance. And sorry about my dog. My dog barks sometimes. And so I just want to say that, and I talk about this on my blog too, the only kind of candles I can recommend, honestly, are 100% beeswax, because they actually act as an air purifier. So people that have asthma and have some of those issues don't do well around fragrance candles. And there's a reason. I mean, fragrances, most candles, paraffin candles, are chemical fragrances. They're very rarely 100% pure essential oils. That's what you have to have for any kind of product, whether it be a cleaning product or a candle, to be safe. So the reason I go into the reasons why beeswax is considered an air purifier has to do to the negative and positive ions, and you guys can read that. It's interesting. It acts a little bit like an air purifier. They don't smoke, or very little do they smoke, and they barely drip. They have a very high melt point. So even though they are kind of expensive, they last a long time. Okay, so just consider that if you're in the habit of lighting candles around your house, or a lot of people put candles in the bathrooms. Bathrooms are sort of notoriously not ventilated. If you're lucky enough to have a window in your bathroom, that's another thing, but just be kind of aware of that, and just really be aware of fragrances. And the reason fragrances are a problem is they do not have to be disclosed on the ingredients of most any product, because they're considered a trade secret or proprietary information. That's a problem, because they can contain a host of chemicals. They mostly do, because those chemicals are way cheaper than using essential oils. Okay, that's just a little heads up on that. So when you get into your green cleaners, they're so easy to make anyway to be effective. And one of my most recent posts is about disinfecting during COVID. So I talk about, okay, your vinegar and lemon might not cut it to your, degree of comfort right now, and rightly so. So I go into that a bit on what kind of disinfectants that you can create at home, because a lot of us can't even get our hands on disinfectants, right? Even if we wanted to, that is safe. They're the safest options for your health, your air, and taking care of any really serious, strong viruses like what we have going on right now.
We have a couple candle questions.
Okay.
Lindsay asks, I used to hear a lot about soy candles. Now it seems to be that beeswax is a thing. Should I stay away from soy candles?
The reason I don't like soy candles, a lot of them are practical reasons. First of all, they just melt. You just put them in the sun and they melt. Okay. But second of all, soy is a really high GMO crop. So it's even when soy says it's GMO free, you have to be a little bit dubious about that, because it's one of the first GMO crops, and those crops cross-contaminate. So even, so I just don't trust it for that reason. It's not really gonna hurt you, but it's not necessarily gonna help you. And it's also expensive. They melt really fast. They have a high melt point. So I'm ever practical. I'm like, give me the most bang for my buck. That's what drives me so much. So that's my answer about soy. I'm not, If it's a soy candle and it's 100% natural, fragrance, pure fragrance, I'm not going to say look out, but that's my opinion about soy.
That's great. And that leads into the next question from Cynthia, who asks, are there scented beeswax candles?
Oh yeah. In fact, I'm not plugging. I'm opening an e-store. It'll probably launch next week, but you can see it online now. It's called Green Design Goods. And if you go into my blog, there's a big banner across the top because we're letting my readers know that, oh, you want this product? I have it over here. I do carry beeswax candles on that site. And I do carry aromatherapy ones in beeswax as well. But you don't have to get them from me. But yeah, they're out there. Aromatherapy, beeswax is out there for sure.
That's great. And for that, Chrissy and Joanne are mentioning some young living oils that are a great product as well, if you guys want to check those out in the chat as you go. Great.
Okay, so when I talk about, let's talk about one of my mantras right now is COVID is not an excuse to pollute. And let's really think about where we are right now. We're in spring. It's naturally regenerative. We see nature all around us going on without us, really, right? And it's doing its thing, and it's super happy to have a breath. Okay, so we see that. And what should our response be? To go back to our crazy ways of, degrading our environment and our entire ecosystem, or marching forward with better practices? And I think it's no shame, no blame. That's not what this is about. But it is about us as individuals making some different choices. And it's really easy. There's so many of these choices are super easy. But specifically, if you've moved your office indoors, home, you've moved your office home, there's a few things that you should be aware of that home electricity use is up by 30% because people have moved home. And industry electricity use, as in offices and, factories and whatnot, is down about the same amount, right? So we've transferred that expense that we used to, I used my copier at work, or I use my stuff at work, into our own household now. So it's never been a better time to be super mindful about that. A couple of culprits. If you leave chargers plugged in, they actually can suck, they can cost 10 to 15% of your electric bill. If you leave your appliances or your devices on standby, they also still suck. So if you're going to bed, shut your computer off, unplug chargers. A little hack that's helpful: if you put your phone on airplane mode and charge it before you go to bed, it charges way faster. And then you can unplug the charger at night, overnight. Then your phone isn't plugged in overnight, actually in most cases being overcharged, because it doesn't take 8 to 12 hours to charge your phone, right? So you're sucking energy in a way. If you just you kind of shore up some of these energy sucks, it can help your electric bill. And speaking of your electric bill, everybody, in almost every place, and I can't say this for certain because I haven't been to every single municipality in the United States, but there are generally a renewable energy option on almost any municipality. And you just have to click that box on your bill. And then your energy is coming from renewable sources. And in some cases, it might cost a little more. Maybe it works out to be $25 more a year, okay? Not $25 more a month. And in some cases, it doesn't cost more. So I can't speak to where you're getting your energy from, but it's definitely worth looking into, because the more people that are demanding renewable energy, the more renewable energy that has to be supplied to the grid. And that's kind of a complicated discussion to get into, but that's kind of the overview of that. So if you can, that's a huge gesture to know that your energy that you're using is coming from solar and wind and hydro. That's a huge gesture. And the more demand, the more supply, like in anything. Light bulbs, okay, we all got the memo on light bulbs. We went to the compact fluorescent for a long time. I'm saying to you, when your iridescent or your compact fluorescent burns out, buy an LED. And you may think, oh, I hate those. The light is so, okay, it's not anymore. You can get LEDs in any color now. LEDs can be soft. They don't, so the range of color on LED is, good. And just to give you a few just points on this, if you swap out your incandescent, this is incandescent to LED, this isn't CFL, but okay, you get it, right? The incandescent's lifespan is like 1,000 to 2,000 kilowatt hours, right? And the LED is 25,000. There's no comparison. You might be walking through, your hardware store and go, ew, that LED is so expensive. It's not expensive. It's not expensive. It's going to last so much longer. It's going to suck so much less energy. And remember, on an incandescent bulb, 90% of the energy that it uses to light up is released in heat. So it doesn't make any sense. So if we haven't, I know most of us have got them out on the CFLs, but now I really think when that CFL burns out, get an LED, because when you have a light bulb that lasts that long, we have less light bulbs in the waste stream. So think of it as a waste prevention issue, because light bulbs aren't super easy to handle. They're kind of hazardous waste. And if we're creating way more hazardous waste than we need, we're dumb. Okay, so that's that. Switching off your electrics, unplug your chargers, get a strip that you can power down. You have the most, devices plugged into at once, and you hit the switch and it powers down at night. So you're not sucking energy. And ACs, we're going to be moving into this time pretty soon where ACs are going to start to get cranked up. And I just want everyone to remember, I don't think I have to really say this to this group, but they are not air exchangers. ACs are not ventilators. ACs are heat exchangers. So they take that dirty air and they change the temperature of it and they push it right back into the room, okay? So if you're using ACs, that's fine, but you still have to ventilate your room. You still have to open windows, not when you're using it, but around using it, right? Don't set your the temperature on your AC too high. Don't make it super, super cold. It takes more energy, it takes more coolant. Coolants are a huge problem. If you read a great, great book called The Drawdown Project, coolants are right at the top of the list of one of our most, offensive problems we have for our environment. Refrigerants have to get under control. So just be mindful, cool your room down, and then don't have it, cool your room down in a low energy load time. So you're not cranking your AC during the highest point of the day with the most energy demand. There's tricks around that, but just be mindful, make sure that your AC is not leaking, that it's properly sealed, and that, there's not a window open right next to it. Just be mindful of them. They're huge energy sucks. I know everybody knows because you see your energy bill at the, end of August, right?
Questions and discussions going on. So I'll throw out some suggestions from the group, which is that Belkin makes a great, from Christina, Belkin makes a great power strip that lets you turn it off with a switch, so you don't have to unplug anything plugged in to stop the power drain with just one fell flick of a switch. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you. And Lindsay Norman says it's shocking how impressive the color temperature range has become for LEDs.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure any lighting designers in the group watching right now will attest to.
Yes.
And Jacob shares a great anecdote about Jacob says, I changed my apartment bulbs to LEDs and it dropped my bill by about $30 a month, not including how much longer they last.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's
great.
Amazing. Okay.
Mara says they even make pretty LEDs that look like Edison bulbs. That's awesome.
They do, exactly. I have those. Yeah, if you have a pendant that your bulb is exposed in and you don't want that LED look, you can get one that looks like an Edison bulb. Yeah.
That's great. But Marianne asked an interesting question. She says, my family works in an organization for eye diseases and they don't suggest LEDs since they can damage the eyes and disrupt sleep cycles. Do you have a take on those opinions?
You know what? I have not ever heard that. Yeah. So that's a really good thing to look into. I know some LEDs, I have them where they have they look like a regular old iridescent bulb that has a coating around it. So I'm wondering if that makes a difference. But that's a really good point. I'd like to look into that, and I'd also like to talk to my ophthalmologist about that because he would have a take on it. So hold that thought, and I'll post about it. How about that?
Great. Thank you. That would be great to learn more about. Marianne gives a big thank you. Mara has a question. Yep. Sorry.
Just on that LED lighting point, we've gone down that path a bit. There's a French study from a number of years that has not been largely corroborated, finding problems with the LEDs. We've had an equity member make comments about the LEDs. We've tracked it down and found no consensus on this. So as with, and I'm not saying this is of the same quality concern, as with immunization, there are people who very strongly believe that LEDs are bad and are adamant about that. It hasn't been replicated in many other studies, but there are studies on both sides of this. As we checked into it with environmental organizations and forwarded this to the NRDC and others for vetting, since it came to us from an equity member, we have not changed our recommendation for LEDs, but we are aware that it is something that there's different points of view and different scientific backing for points of view about it.
Thank you for that. Thank you. That's great. Let's dig into it and really look at it so people can feel at ease. But that's so great. I'm going to go on and talk about the ubiquitous product in everyone's life called plastic. And I just think that we have to really get our heads around this now, because China no longer takes our plastic. We are rolling in it. And there's a lot of new documentaries out, things that I've already known about, but the trouble with plastic is it's not really recycled. And even if it is recycled, which is only about 9% of the plastic we produce and use is actually recycled. So that's troubling. But it also just goes back into being another plastic thing that probably won't be recycled. Okay, so we have to get our heads around this material. And there's all the obvious things. I'm gonna just say, don't buy it. When you cannot buy it, don't buy it. Buy your peanut butter in a glass jar. Buy your stuff in cans. Don't buy it in plastic. If you have a choice between buying something in plastic or in cardboard, glass, or aluminum, or aluminum, do those, because those materials actually will be recycled. And there's a lot, glass is a cradle to cradle material. It's always going to be recycled. Metal always has a market. It always will. Metal has a market. The only place where plastic is really relevant and needed is really in the medical world. Those durable plastics, right? And some durable goods that need to be light, but no one's throwing them out. We're talking about single-use plastics for people that just can't quit the Ziploc bag. You need to quit it, okay? Because even those, particularly soft plastics, they don't even go in the recycling bin. And a lot of them, as many of you try, like I do, because you just can't help it, you get it, try to sneak them into those grocery plastic receptacles. But the truth is that plastic is only a certain kind of plastic that they can turn back into plastic bags, and plastic bags are being banned everywhere. So we just have to stop it. I don't know if you guys have seen the silicone. They're 100% food grade silicone. The great thing about silicone is it is high heat and high temperature resistant. So it can freeze, it can boil, it can go in the microwave. It doesn't degrade in those places. So this one is, it's got like a standing bottom, which is great because you can stand it up on your counter and pour liquid into it, right? And zip it up and throw it in the freezer, or you're taking, it on the go or whatever. They make a few different brands of these, but look for them because they're nearly indestructible. So you might go, okay, those are really expensive. And you're like, yeah, but they're not expensive because of their lifespan. Okay? So look for those. Always do on your reusables, I particularly like glass. I just do. This is my go-to bottle, right? So it's got a silicone sleeve. Glass, stainless, food grade stainless steel or insulated stainless steel. And I also have a collapsible silicone bottle that collapses down, so it's super light and expands. So those are what I would suggest. I know that there are some plastics out there that are considered to be really durable and really go the distance, but there's not an end of life solution for them that we can be comfortable with. So anything that you're using that doesn't have an end of life solution that's, kind of fail proof, try to find a new option for it. For instance, I'm going to be carrying on my store pens that are made out of wheat board, and you may have seen them. Wheat board is really hard, like it look, like sort of like bamboo, the bamboo melamine combo that looks sort of like plastic, but it's not. Those are biodegradable. And not only that, this particular pen, this is an office pen, comes with a refill. So you don't have to throw the casing of the pen away. So if you're really being hardcore in your home office, buy a fountain pen. Buy a pen that you do not throw away the entire pen. And you can refill or get a cartridge that goes back into it. Just think in those terms, and also in terms of your office, always buy 100% recycled paper. And I know that too on the shelves of these stores, Staples, whatnot, is more expensive. We can't be flushing our forests down the toilet or throwing our forests away in the trash bin because we refuse to buy 100% post-consumer waste recycled paper. On every paper product you buy, that's what you need to buy. It's so vitally important because the bulk of those papers that are coming from virgin forests, and we can't cut our forests down. They're the lungs of our planet. We just can't do it anymore. We've gone past the point. 98% of the old growth forests globally are gone. So we have to think about that. Fsc Certified Forest stands for forests that are being planted and maintained specifically to be cut for paper. And that's different. But there's enough operators out there that are really cutting into old growth all over the place. You just can't be sure where that paper came from. So that's another thing you can do. In your office, rather than buying highlighters, consider colored pencils to highlight. They work. They're fine. You can see through them. They're not, they're good. These colored pencil, they make a lot of eco color pencils. They're just basically, they'll just biodegrade. There's nothing toxic about them. They can go back into the earth. They make a pencil called a plantable pencil. It doesn't have an eraser on it, and you can literally plant it in the ground when you're done with it. Buy an all rubber eraser and you're all set. You do not need a plastic clicky click click pencil. No one needs that. Okay, you just don't need it. Just get a sharpener and get a real pencil and go. These are such no-brainer things, right? Oh, this is another thing about your indoor space. I know I'm ping-ponging around, but if it's a small space, you know, indoor plants really do in your indoor space what trees do in your outdoor space. All right, so get a couple plants. Indoor plants are heavy lifters. They actually work. There's a NASA study that was exhaustive that showed that 75% of the toxins and particulates in an unventilated indoor space can really be pulled out of the air, absorbed by houseplants. So you need about 4 or 5 plants per 500 square feet. That gives you an idea. And most indoor plants that grow indoors, that have, you know, are fine indoors without a ton of light, work. There's some that are considered superheroes. I think most of them work. But like philodendrons, ivy, English ivy, which also doesn't need a tremendous amount of light. Mother-in-law's tongue or snake plant, that also is a really hard plant to kill. It doesn't need a ton of light. If you're going for an indoor space that doesn't have a lot of light, you want to go for the plants that can hang in there that way. But do that. It will really help your air. Another few things that I want to talk about really quickly about switching over to, when you look into your waste bin or your garbage, you can really do an audit and see what you're throwing the most away, right? So in this time where we can't get to the grocery store quite as often, and we have to be really mindful of using everything we buy, which is terrific because this country, we waste about 40% of the food we buy gets thrown away. Not right now, it doesn't, because people are eating home, they're having to plan, they're having to shop that way. If we can carry that behavior forward, that would be tremendous, because food waste is another huge problem for the planet, like number 2 problem on that list. Refrigerants, food waste, animal agriculture, okay? So consider we all love our Keurigs, we all love our Nespressos. Consider getting refillable pods. You can buy them. So you can just pack these with your favorite coffee or espresso and use them over and over and over again. Because those pods are just plastic and they're going right into the waste stream. Okay, that's something you can do easily at home. And you might have to click around and find one that works for you. Most of them will say, this is compatible with this machine, and sometimes you'll get it and you won't like it and you'll try another one. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna recommend one particular one, but do that. If you're a tea drinker, consider loose tea and a tea strainer. That's also a no-brainer, because there's a lot that we don't know about those tea bags. I mean, it's shown that there's a lot of not good stuff in them, and they're being heated up in this way that, you know, they're going to release those toxins into your drink. So consider really changing the behavior over. I know that people get irritated because it's not as convenient, but it's time to sort of create a new behavior, because the inconvenience will go away once you get used to it. And you are eliminating a ton of waste by doing it this way.
Okay. We've got a few questions if you're ready for them.
Yeah.
Great. Susan, seconded by Lindsay, is asking, going back to the plants, any idea what types of plants cats don't like? Not toxic, but unattractive to cats? Or anyone in the group knows?
Oh yeah, I bet someone could. I think there are a few. I bet somebody knows in this group. Yeah, I don't have a cat, so.
Great. If not, we will research that question for next week's green gardening session. That is a good question for, I'm sure a few people have cats. So we will get back to that. Stay tuned. Join us next week for plants cats don't like. Great. We have a couple other questions. I recommend everyone, they're great questions have gone back and forth in the chat, and many have been answered. So there's good information in the chat. But another question for you is your thoughts on appliances. Mara asked, what do you do about appliances? Try to buy the one with the least plastic. I hate when I buy a humidifier or even my SodaStream, knowing it will eventually end up in the waste stream. Is the best thing to do to see companies that take back their appliances at the end of life? What is best practice?
Best practices is to seek companies that will take back their appliances at the end of life. But like the medical profession, a lot of those appliances go and go and go. Like I have a SodaStream. It's more important to have a SodaStream than to not have one, because you just eliminated a ton of plastic if you're really into bubbly water. I have a SodaStream that's over 20 years old. You know, these aren't really things that are breaking that you're sending into the landfill. And also rigid plastics, even though we're in a dilemma with plastics recycling, we still are taking, in NYC, we're taking rigid plastics. In NYC, it's a little bit different because we have all our plastics, metals, cartons, and glass go to a it's called a MRF. That's inside term of it, but it's a materials recovery facility. And that one is called SIMS. And it takes all of it, and it's very efficient. And whatever business model that it operates around, it has its markets. We're not shipping that stuff somewhere else. But in most cases, they are. So I think that's a long answer, but yeah, any companies that will take back, that's great. You might be seeing more and more and more of those now because companies are clamoring to be B Corps, and B Corps are, you can look into B Corps, but they tick all the boxes on, transparency of material, good working habits, conditions. They pay a cradle to cradle life, philosophy when they can with their product. They're excellent. So I think more and more businesses are getting the memo that, hey, someone's going to choose me over that guy if I have, the best green practices for my business. More people are choosing those. I hope that answers your question.
That was great. Thank you. That's what I've been thinking, but I just wanted to pick someone else's brain.
Mara, do you want to ask your question by voice about winter ventilation?
Yeah, I'm just often conflicted about winter ventilation. You've got the stale, polluted air inside, but I don't want to let the heat out for energy conservation. I wondered if you have any tips on that.
Yeah, I think that you can crack a window, and it doesn't have to be open all day. You can crack a window maybe in the warmest time of the day, and also the heating. If we're holed up in radiator heated, forced air heated atmospheres, it's really important to let some of that out. I also think air filtration is really good, worth investing in. There's a lot of good ones out there that really do capture a lot of the junk, and that can help in the winter months because you're not able to cross ventilate and have your doors and windows open all the time.
Makes sense.
I think all right, thank you. Do you have any suggestions for ventilators on your blog?
I don't think I've written about them. I have one and I like it. It really helps. My daughter gets bad allergies and it eases those up. And I've had some stuff too with my lungs, so I have to be really careful. So yeah, I find, I bought mine literally by the rating. Like I looked at them across the board. I looked at people's reviews and ratings and whatnot. And I kind of went for one in the middle of the pack that wasn't crazy expensive and wasn't crazy cheap. And I've been really happy with it.
Great. Anything else, Mara? Great. I think we have an answer to the cat plant question. Jessie, are you suggesting cactus?
Yeah, it was sort of funny, but they'll definitely only go near it once and they'll learn. But I mean, toxicity, you can go to the ASPCA website, but I'm not sure if they have a list of plants that cats don't necessarily like. I just put mine all up high so that they can't reach them. But I have like 100 plants, so they're all up high.
Smart. Thank you, Jessie.
Yeah, I will just say on the plants, one thing that the succulents and the cactus aren't the highest performers for removing toxins from the air. The leafier the plant, you know, that's really where you get a lot of the draw. So I'm just throwing that out there. I love the succulents, but they're not the heavy lifters.
Great. Two questions I'm going to put together. One question was asked about what somebody bought the silicone reusable bags, but their brand didn't close. If you recommended a brand or certain brands that might stay closed, and also when those products get worn out, can they be recycled or do they end up in a landfill?
They can be recycled. Yeah. And yeah, they go a long time though. The brand I know that's really popular is Stasher. So you see Stasher at a lot of stores. They must have a good closing mechanism. I've seen them, I've handled them, and it's like, they're great. The reason I'm going to be carrying this one is because it stands up. The bottom stands up, and the actual slide closure is something that's never really gonna not work. You know what I mean? If this thing starts to not work anymore, this is gonna make sure it's closed. I know some people are like, I don't want to use that thing, but this isn't going anywhere. This is gonna actually seals it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
What brand is
what
that
is it?
one?
What brand?
This particular one is called Big B, Little B. And one thing I like is they actually have, you know, the measurements on it. So you know how many cups are in there. And they make a gallon size one as well. So yeah, and then there's another thing I like about it. They're not as expensive. So where you might, with Stasher, I don't want to degrade Stasher, but you might be paying $12 for a little thing. With these, you pay $12 for 2 of these. So these are about $6 a piece, which is about half the price. I kind of like the price point on them too.
Did you say you can cook in those? Because I know with Stasher you can like boil them and everything.
Yes, you can. You can boil them. You can boil them. You can take them up to like 450 degrees Fahrenheit, so they can go in the oven. They can go in the microwave. And, you know, they're BPA, BPS free, so they don't have any of that stuff. But they're food grade silicone. There's some people that don't like the idea of food grade silicone, okay? You might look into it, click around. I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. I don't have concerns about it. We've been using silicone in cooking for a long time. You probably have a silicone spatula or silicone muffin pan, or, you know, it's been in the food market for a long time. So, or the cooking market, you know, so I don't have a problem with it.
That's great. Thank you. I want to talk about a great question that Christina asks now, which I think probably a lot of us are feeling all or most of what you talk about here, Christina, which is how do we navigate this new COVID world in a sustainable way? And this is something we've touched on a bit in other sessions, and I think everyone would be curious as to your thoughts on this. For example, Christina says, just going to the grocery store, I have been prohibited from bringing my reusable bags. Bulk bins are closed off. And she talks about, you know, everyone wearing one-time use gloves and masks, and it can be disheartening that, you know, some of our green practices we can't do for these health and safety reasons. I'm paraphrasing you a bit, Christina. And so what are your thoughts on sustainability?
I have a really strong feeling about those plastic gloves. I think they only belong on medical workers. I don't know why people are walking around with those. If you want to cover your hands, you can cover your hands with gloves, any glove, but a glove or your hand is going to get contaminated regardless. So it's really about washing your hands. If you have a glove on your hands, that glove has to be handled now, right? And that's just an extra thing. Most people are removing them and throwing them wherever. There's a huge pollution problem. Those gloves aren't recyclable. Those aren't going to be recycled. Those are going straight into an incinerator or a landfill. So I personally don't go to the store with gloves on, because I know it doesn't matter. I'm going to be touching things. I'm going to wash my hands, or I'm going to immediately sanitize my hands when I leave the store. Some stores will allow you to bring your own bags if you pack them, and you understand why. You understand why the personnel can't be sure what's that bag's been into, right? So you get it. But what I've been doing now is I just pack my cart, and I don't put anything in any bags, and I just take it to my car and I pack it into containers in my car. Now, not everyone has a car. Not everyone's driving to the store right now. Okay, so if I were in the city, it would be a different thing. But I think that these are all really practical, important things to think about. How much waste we're creating. And again, going back to this mantra of COVID is not an excuse to pollute, but it is hard. It's hard to navigate. If you're forced to take the plastic bags at a store, then you just are forced to take the plastic bags at a store for this time being, and then you make sure those bags get back into that bin at the store, because those bins are there for a reason. The people that supply those plastic bags to those stores take that plastic back, and they make more plastic bags. They actually are recycled. Make sure that there's no paper in them. Don't gum up the works. Unfortunately, those bins don't take those Ziploc-y things. So if the thing you bought is in one of those Ziploc-y plastics, and you think that can be recycled again, cut the Ziploc thing off before you put it into that bin, into that recycling stream. Something about that gums up the works as well.
That's really helpful. So Melina has a great thought that university medical labs on their campus collect the gloves, and she's been thinking about getting recycle bins for the department as well. And in the chat, Melina, you linked to a TerraCycle for disposable gloves. That's
great. Okay, Melina, thank you, because I didn't know that TerraCycle took them, but that's fantastic. And the TerraCycle is great because you basically do your collection, and when you're ready to send, they send you the label and you ship. Okay, so on their dime, not on yours. So a lot of times they'll have quotas. They'll say it needs to be this much, or don't send it to it. So sometimes you have to do kind of a collection. Some of their collections they're called on TerraCycle, they're called brigades. Some of their brigades you actually have to pay to participate in, because they were so crazy popular. Like the used writing utensil one, for instance, is almost impossible to get into, because so many schools joined it, and they were inundated, and they went, okay, now you can't join it because we have more than we can handle. And then if you do join it, you have to actually pay to be part of it. That, I'm not sure on the glove thing. I doubt that's the case, but just so you know, TerraCycle is a great resource. And what I think is great about it too is it requires a certain community involvement. So in my building in New York City, we have a thing in the lobby, and we're collecting, used writing utensils, and we know our building knows that they can put their someone has to manage it, but it's this idea of kind of spreading the word. And going back to Christina's question, it's like, be a leader in what you can do to help other people do the right thing. Because I think a lot of people want to do the right thing or want to be helpful, but if they're just solo, they're like, I can't do this. And then they say, hey, you can do it. I'm going to help you do it. I'm going to have a collection. I'm going to take these things, and I'm going to handle the shipping of these. All you have to do is contribute to them.
Great.
and these collections. I think it's really the epitome of grassroots efforts. And I think it's grassroots efforts that are going to get us out of this mess we're in. So I really encourage that.
Yeah, I want to go to Joanne for a minute, who has a thought she wants to share on the gloves. Joanne, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, Jen. Sorry, I had to show it. So I have a thought, because I understand what you're saying about the gloves. I agree completely. I think that maybe I'm being too optimistic. That's overkill. But the reason I wear gloves to go to the grocery store is not necessarily for me. It's for the respect of other people in the store that get nervous. Also, back years ago, or not years ago, a couple of months ago, I was one of those people who picked up produce and went, nope, not right. So I don't try not to do that. So I wear gloves to be respectful for other people. And I was saying to Mara that I wear garden gloves.
I do too.
And then I just wash them, and I put my hand sanitizer before I walk in the store, and then I hand sanitize again when I take them off, and then wash them.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't wear gloves. I'm just saying you don't need those plastic ones. If you feel more comfortable, or in the case of Joanne, you feel like it's more respectful to other shoppers to wear gloves, then just like I said, find a garden glove or those really stretchy gloves that you can really handle, and just wash them. You know, like you would your hands. You're still gonna have to wash your hands. You're still gonna have to sand it. But if that, that's exactly right. I agree with that. I agree with that.
Great. Thank you,
And
Joanna.
the trick is when you're buying produce, shopping for produce, I have a couple bags here. Like if you could, because people handle produce, they handle it. I handle it too, because I want to feel if that onion is mushy or not. I'm not going to buy it if it's soft, right? Or that apple. So just take your reusable produce bag, hopefully not the plastic ones. Sometimes you get caught with your pants down and you have to take them. But your reusable ones, and just use these as your grabber. So you just kind of you can feel through them because they're meshy. And then you just kind of grab them and put them in there, right? And like something like these are both rinsable. You could wash your produce right in these bags when you get home. You just take them, you put them in your soapy sink, the stuff that actually can be immersed and should be immersed, like lemons and apples and that kind of thing. And then you're good to go, and you rinse them and you're good. There's just those little hacks, those little tricks.
Great. All right, I'm aware of the time, and I do, Lindsay, see your question, just asking for final clarification on the Ziploc bags, just clarifying about them being able to be recycled. Can you just clarify for us? I was reading online that Ziploc bags can go in those containers, but if you cut off the zipper, what the final lowdown?
Yeah, exactly. They can be if you cut off the zipper. Most people don't, but that's the thing. A lot of people are really addicted to those. They can't even function without boxes and boxes of them. I go into my really personal friends' houses and they'll open a drawer and I'm like, oh my God, you've got like 10 boxes of Ziploc bags in there. That, there's so many options to those now. Snack bags, so many things that you can use. I mean, look, this is a reusable cup, okay? This is like for hot beverages, cold beverages, whatever. You can also use this for snacks. It doesn't have to be in a Ziploc bag. Who said that had to happen, right? So yes, cut the zipper off. And like I said, if you get let's say, I'm gonna give an example. You buy some tortillas in that plastic pouch they're in. They all have a Ziploc. Most everything does now. Cheese bags, all of them have that Ziploc. If it's a filmy enough, thin enough plastic, cut the zipper off and you put it into that recycling for sure.
Great, thank you so much. All right, I am aware of the time. We are at 2:01. So as the stage manager in me must stop us. And thank you so much to Jennifer for this incredible session. I know we have all learned so much and have incredible actionable takeaways. So thank you. And we will all be reading your blog for more.
Yeah, and in terms of my blog, sign up for the newsletter, because that way when I post, it'll just ding into your inbox. You don't have to read it, but it lets you know there's a new post, and you're like, oh, I want to see what she said. You know, I'm not going to hound you or anything. You won't get a million of those.
I want to be hounded. So thank you. I want to be hounded. I want to know when your blogs go up, and we will include the link to your blog in our follow-up email to all of you so you can follow up. We'll include the information from the chat. Again, thanks to all of you for such great information and answers. We always learn so much together. So thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, for your time, your expertise. Join us again next Thursday. Mara will be giving us a deep dive on green gardening. We'll be learning about regenerative gardening, and I certainly can't wait. My plants can't wait. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Amazing, Jen.
Thanks.
Thank you all.